Hello and welcome back to Digital Assets Daily. We hope that you are having a great morning, afternoon, or evening in your corner of the world. All right, tonight we have a long one. I'm going to try and rush through it as quick as I can, but there is a lot of exciting news to share today, and I did save the best for last, and I will go into details and explain my thoughts and share my opinion and break it down how I believe it could easily happen. And if you are an XRP investor, after tonight's show, I believe you will be very excited. And if you already were, grab some popcorn. Okay, here we go. First piece of news, we have the crypto exchange OKEX launches XRP and Ethereum Classic futures. Plans roll out for Tron and Bitcoin SV. We'll go through this a little bit. The Malta-based digital asset exchange OKEX is introducing XRP and Ethereum Classic ETC futures contracts today. If you understand futures contracts, that's going to be pretty exciting pretty fast. OKEX is currently the world's largest cryptocurrency derivatives exchange by 24-hour trading volume. And just a little quick note on that. Knowing Brad Garlinghouse, I did a few videos on him, and one specifically going a little more into his history. He's been hired for every job he has taken as CEO because the company was too widespread. They were not focused. Brad Garlinghouse is a very focused man, and he comes in. Suppose the company is shooting for 12 different ideas at the same time. He will bring them down to one, complete that perfectly, then move on to 2, then move on to 3, then move on to 4. I think you get the point from there on until he has done all 12. But understanding you can only do one at a time perfectly, but there's no limit to how many you can do. Where many companies come in and they think they have the staff, they think they have the ability to do high volumes and spread themselves too thin in their confidence or in their arrogance. Choose your word there, I'll leave it up to you. But the point is, the companies who were smart enough to understand the value and the capability of Brad were very, very successful. Feel free to scroll back through previous videos and understand a little more about Brad and how amazing he is as a CEO. One thing stated, he is running Ripple, pardon me, and the whole focus was remittance. They were not going to move on to anything beyond that until that had been completed. Now we're talking about XRP and derivatives. That's pretty much all I need to say about that after my explanation of how impressive Brad Garlinghouse is as a CEO. Diving back in, OKEX is currently the world's largest cryptocurrency derivatives exchange by 24-hour trading volume, according to data from CoinGecko. Both the XRP and ETC futures are settled in the stablecoin Tether USDT, and users can trade weekly, bi-weekly, and quarterly contracts. OKEX also offers Bitcoin BTC, Ethereum ETH, EOS, Litecoin LTC, and Bitcoin Cash BCH futures contracts. These are available for trading on the exchange's USDT margined futures market, which went live November 14, 2019. I'm going to stay on track with tonight's theme, so we're going to end that one there. Feel free, as always, we do include every article in the description below. Feel free to click on the link and further read all articles or do further research on your own. The next article, state-backed German bank says Bitcoin will leap to 90,000 in 2020. Also, a more recent, let's see, when is this article? October 1st, 2019. In a more recent article, the same bank says Bitcoin will achieve its 90,000, and they're claiming that XRP will reach $10. Next article. Ripple files the last bid to dismiss XRP securities lawsuit before court meeting. We'll go into this just real lightly because, as you know, they've been in a lawsuit for a few years now. And they're getting a little anxious to have this thing end, I believe. I know they did extend it for reasons, but I think now the reasons are no longer needed. Pardon me, I had to take a quick sip. I just made a fresh cup of coffee there to make sure I could get through this for you guys. Okay, here we go. Even if XRP were a security, the investors suing Ripple brought their case far too late for it to proceed, the company said in a new filing. Further subsequent arguments made by the plaintiffs contradict their original claims, Ripple said in the December 4 filing with the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. It's probably a little challenge sometimes when you're reading a few different languages coming back to reading English. It's the latest document filed in the back and forth since a federal court appointed Bradley Sostak, the lead plaintiff in the ongoing case. Sostak filed his initial amended complaint in August 2019. The plaintiffs claimed the company sold XRP as an unregistered security to retail investors. The filing largely reiterated arguments Ripple made in an earlier motion to dismiss the case. That the amended complaint filed in August missed a legal deadline to pursue claims after an event that led plaintiffs still hasn't been able to show that he bought XRP from any of the defendants or during an initial offering, and that the claims that XRP is a security conflict with the plaintiff's claims under California state consumer protection law. As such, Ripple once again has sidestepped the most important question the case poses for the digital asset industry: whether XRP, the third largest cryptocurrency by market capitalization, is a security under U.S. law. XRP is not a security, but that is irrelevant for purposes of this motion. Even if XRP were a security, plaintiffs' claims still fail as a matter of law, the filing said, emphasis from the original document. The filing is the last before the parties meet in court next month to argue over the motion to dismiss. No need to go further into that. You now basically know the idea of what the entire suit is about if you are new to the space. That pretty much summed it up well. Next piece of news: financial giant SBI considering expansive XRP dividends program. The Tokyo-based SBI Holdings, a major financial services company, is reportedly looking into granting XRP as part of a benefit program to all shareholders of SBI Group, according to CEO Yoshitaka Kitao. SBI subsidiary Morningstar confirmed in August that XRP, the world's largest digital asset by market cap, will be distributed to its shareholders. Now, as reported by Cointelegraph Japan, SBI Holdings is considering a plan to distribute XRP to shareholders company-wide for the financial year ending in March 2020. SBI is a longtime Ripple partner and invested in the San Francisco startup back in 2016. SBI says it's also preparing to launch a new mining facility within the next year. The financial services company is planning to establish a crypto mining facility in the U.S. and Kyrgyzstan, according to Kitao. The facilities will allow it to mine more effectively and efficiently. In addition, Kitao says the company plans to work with Yahoo, SoftBank. In October 2019, SBI revealed it would team up with Z Holdings, which manages Yahoo's Japanese division. When we talked about this financial business alliance, there were discussions about merging with Yahoo SoftBank. But the SBI Group currently has around 7,000 workers, and it appears that both entities will not be under the same management due to differences in corporate culture. Pulled up another article on the SBI mulling a company-wide cryptocurrency shareholder payout in XRP, which we had just addressed, but I thought there was something else in this one I wanted to share as I scroll down quickly here. Okay, here it was. This was more for the new people. If you've been in this for a few years, you're already well aware of this. Pardon me, excuse me for that. Katao is a Ripple board member, and SBI is arguably Ripple's closest East Asian partner. The two companies cooperate the SBI Ripple Asia payment platform. The SBI chief said that the August XRP payout had driven up subscriptions to the company's Japanese crypto exchange, SBI VC Trade, as Morningstar shareholder wishing to claim their XRP were obliged to open accounts on the platform to claim their tokens. However, Katao hinted that if SBI does go ahead with the XRP payout, shareholders will be able to choose whether or not they would like to receive their benefits in cryptocurrency. At Pixel time, 9:38 UTC, XRP trades at USD 22 cents and is up by 1% in a day, trimming its weekly losses to 4.6%. The price is down by 28% in a month and by 37% in a year. Katao also made other announcements regarding SBI's cryptocurrency-related business plans, with more materials shared online. SBI subsidiary, SBI Crypto, will begin operations at 2 new mining facilities before the end of year 2019. Or I should say end of fiscal year, the FY 2019, which is a bit different. Off the top of my head, I don't have it, but I believe their fiscal year is around March 2020. With farms opening in the United States and Kyrgyzstan, another farm will close down and move elsewhere, meaning the company will end the financial year with 4 overseas farms in operation. Katao also suggested that SBI was looking to cooperate with CryptoKeen, Yahoo Japan, on possible cryptocurrency-related projects. The companies have already begun working together on Forex trading-related business operations. SBI said in October that SBI VC Trade and SBI Crypto are both making money for the company. The exchange business has posted pre-tax profits of USD 30 million. With SBI Crypto posting pre-tax profits of USD 2.7 million, despite a 17% decrease in the group's overall financial performance. Next article, we have Forte introduces XRP to $140 billion industry. BlockFi adds BTC and ETH trading, and Litecoin Foundation contemplates LTC hash rate. Regards of XRP, the Ripple-backed gaming company Forte says it's pushing to utilize XRP and the Interledger protocol to build games based on blockchain technology and leverage XRP as a settlement currency. In a new blog post, co-founder Brett Seiler says the company is specifically looking at how the technology can be used to help companies in the $140 billion industry create free-to-play games that give players the option to purchase in-game assets such as upgraded swords and armor. The free-to-play business model dominates the way games are run now. This model has grown the gaming industry more than any other business model in the last 10 years. However, due to increased sophistication and competition of the free-to-play model, modern game economies are now staggeringly complex and difficult to manage. Back in March, Ripple and Forte announced they will jointly invest $100 million USD in companies that create games utilizing blockchain and crypto assets. Article today, published 6 hours ago. XRP could break down from wedge to 11 cents before 2020. As I zoom in, for those of you on your mobile, towards the end of November, XRP touched the 19-cent mark, a value the cryptocurrency last touched in December 2017. With a valuation of 21 cents at the time of writing, XRP had a market capitalization of over $9.35 billion and a 24-hour daily trading volume of $1.35 billion, according to CoinMarketCap. It was traded most on the IDCM exchange, which accounted for nearly 7% of the trade volume over the 24-hour period. On the screen, there are the XRP one-day charts and diagrams as we scroll past them to continue the rest of the articles for those of you who are working or driving, jogging, or whatever you may be doing, shopping, something, and just listening in as we continue with the news. The one-day chart showed that XRP entered a descending, broadening wedge pattern around mid-July. As can be seen in the attached chart, these patterns are usually accompanied by an upward trend in volume. Descending broadening wedge patterns tend to exhibit trend reversing breakouts in 58% of cases, making a slightly more supportive case for an upward movement in price. The MACD indicator could be seen showing the signal and MACD lines moving around the same level, having just completed a bullish crossover with very low bullish momentum. The 50 and 200-day moving average were both traveling above the price line, with the mid-August death cross still in play, applying additional bearish pressure on XRP. Having tested the 38.2% Fibonacci retracement line more than once over the last couple of months, an upward breakout could see XRP move up to 41 cents by the end of the year. However, this seemed unlikely given the bearish signals from indicators. It's far more likely that XRP will break down from the pattern to around 11 cents in the same duration of time as the bullish case, as stated in the article. Next up, we have Kelly Loeffler, Senate appointment win for cryptocurrency industry. One moment as I zoom for those of you who are looking at your screen. Okay, we have Kelly Loeffler, the soon-to-be former head of digital currency infrastructure firm Bakkt, has been appointed to the U.S. Senate by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, a Republican. Loeffler was formally appointed on December 4, although it had been talked about for some time. She will replace Senator Johnny Isaacson, Republican Georgia, who was retiring for health reasons. This is really good news for crypto regulation in the United States, Maddie Greenspan, founder of Quantum Economics, told Modern Consensus via Telegram. She's certainly a friend of crypto and is one of the most influential people in the space. The U.S. Senate Banking Committee has spent a lot of time on the issue of cryptocurrency regulation in the wake of Facebook's Libra stablecoin proposal. That has been heavily attacked by Democrats, notably Senator Sherrod Brown, Democrat of Ohio. He accused Facebook of breathtaking arrogance and said it wants to create its own for-profit version of the Federal Reserve. While Republicans on the committee were less hostile, they remained concerned, as do many of the world's central bankers, that Libra could threaten central banks' control of currency. Many members of Congress first began learning about cryptocurrency during the Libra debates and hearings that gave them an initial view of the industry through a project viewed with either hostility or cautious interest mixed with skepticism. Even President Donald Trump chimed in on Twitter, saying Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are not money, and their value is highly volatile and based on thin air. That makes Loeffler's voice particularly important, according to Greenspan, who until recently was senior market analyst at social trading and brokerage firm eToro. In a place of darkness, even a small flame can create a lot of light, Greenspan said. Loeffler is a bright torch that can easily illuminate the entire U.S. government and show them the value of Bitcoin. Loeffler will step down as CEO of Bakkt before she is sworn in, according to a release issued by Intercontinental Exchange, ICE, the digital asset infrastructure's firm owner. No replacement was named, but the release said BAC's senior management team will continue to work closely with the ICE senior management team, building on the innovations and progress achieved in the past year. Her tenure at BAC wasn't flawless. Its cryptocurrency futures exchange launched with a fizzle in September. While day one saw only a few dozen futures contracts traded, on December 3, BAC tweeted that 2,328 contracts had been traded that day. It hit an all-time high of 5,671 on November 27. Loeffler joined ICE in 2002, becoming a member of its Executive Management Committee, it said. In that time, she oversaw investor relations, marketing, and communications. She is married to Jeffrey Sprecher, the CEO of ICE. Loeffler intends to hold on to the seat after a special election in November 2020. She immediately gave $20 million of her own money to kickstart her campaign, Politico reported. Calling herself a lifelong conservative, Loeffler made the traditional "I am not a career politician" pitch. Over the last 25 years, I've been building businesses, taking risks, and creating jobs. Loeffler said in a statement, "I haven't spent my life trying to get to Washington. There are a few things folks are going to find out about me. I'm pro-Second Amendment, pro-military, pro-wall, and pro-Trump. I'm strongly pro-life." Still, she may have an uphill battle. The appointment was made over the objections of President Donald Trump, who wanted Republican Doug Collins, Republican of Georgia, a strong supporter, appointed to the open seat. The response from the president's core supporters in Georgia was strong enough that Governor Kemp said, "Frankly, I could care less what the political establishment thinks," on his personal Twitter the day after Thanksgiving. Representative Collins may challenge her in the special election. The November election will be open to all Republican comers, so either a head-to-head battle with Collins or a free-for-all are possible. Still, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, promised Loeffler the full support of the party's campaign infrastructure, Politico said. McConnell added that he expected her to have total support from the Republican conference. I believe she is going to help crypto and digital assets in an absolutely enormous way. And I think this is definitely good to getting regulations and the clarity the space has been looking for. All right, now we're going to slowly come into this build-up of what I'm saving for a good surprise. As I took another sip here, so I'd have enough voice to finish off this. Again, we notice the buildup as we get more important near the end for my special surprise for you, which I think will excite you a great deal if you're not already by the information I've just shared. Public digital currency could be needed to lower the cost of payments on the ECB. Directly from the New York Times. A digital currency, let's see what's going on here, sorry. A digital currency backed by the European Central Bank could be necessary if international payments within Europe remained too expensive, an ECB document said, adding that its possible adoption could be accelerated by signs of lower cash usage. The confidential document seen by Reuters also says that an ECB-backed digital currency would have far-reaching implications for monetary policy and for banks, and therefore its possible introduction should be carefully assessed. The document will be presented to European Union finance ministers at a meeting on Thursday, and that is today. Now, as we step into the final article here, directly off the Federal Reserve Financial Services, Federal Reserve Banks Operating Circular Number 6. Funds transfers through the FedWire Funds Service, effective December 20, 2019. And who did Ripple work with? Absolutely. You know the answer. Okay, what we're going to do here I've read all 30 pages that are in this, and I'm going to break this down into how I think they could quite easily connect to XRP. As you scroll through the Fedwire, reading all of the pages, I'm going to skip down. Give me a moment. I don't intend, I apologize if you're watching your screen if I'm going much too fast. Let's see if I can't skip down a little further here. I don't see like an immediate. Let's just try this. Sorry if that's so fast. My apologies if you're looking at your screen. I'm going down to page, I believe it is 12. Let me scroll back up slowly so I can make my point a lot more clear showing you. Okay, here we go. As you get into this article, there is a section for third-party service providers. If they're not using on-demand liquidity, direct and full-time, in the Article 18, this is where I'm going to take a little time. My apologies if this takes too long, but I want to get into this article because I believe if they're not using XRP for on-demand liquidity, absolute and full, right here in Article 18, as a third-party service provider, they absolutely have the choice. We're going to go into this. 18.1, a Fedwire participant may authorize another entity to act as its service provider by executing the agreement in Appendix C. A Fedwire participant must use the agreement in Appendix C even if it is establishing the service provider relationship for contingency purposes only, and even if the service provider is affiliated with the Fedwire participant. Until the agreement in Appendix C is received by the appropriate reserve bank, a Fedwire participant may not use a service provider. A Fedwire participant's authorization is effective no earlier than the business day following the business day that the appropriate reserve bank receives the fully executed agreement in the form of Appendix C. In 18.2, by executing the agreement in Appendix C, a Fedwire participant authorizes a service provider to act on its behalf under this circular and its appendices, and A, designates the service provider as its agent for assessing the reserve bank's systems for sending or receiving funds, transfers, and or securities transfers. B, authorizes the service provider to select which security procedures described in Section 2 of Appendix A to Operating Circular 5 to use to access the reserve bank's systems. And C, authorizes the reserve banks to act upon information and instructions of the service provider with respect to that Fedwire participant. On 18.3, any funds transfer or securities transfer initiated by, transmitted by, or through, or received by or through a service provider is as fully authorized and effective a funds transfer or securities transfer as if it were initiated, transmitted, or received by the Fedwire participant. On 18.4, a funds transfer or securities transfer is sent to a reserve bank when it is transmitted to the Fedwire Funds Service or the Fedwire Securities Service by the service provider. It is the responsibility of the Fedwire participant and its service provider to implement appropriate security controls to protect any information that flows between the Fedwire participant and the service provider. Again, notice the date on every single page and on the headline. Operating Circular Number 6, effective December 20th, 2019. That is very important because that is about 15 days away from today. On 18.5, by authorizing a service provider to act on its behalf, a Fedwire participant agrees that A, its service provider may be granted credentials identifying the service provider as authorized to assess the Fedwire services. B, its service provider may use those credentials to act on behalf of the Fedwire participant. And C, at the option of its service provider, the service provider may use the same credentials to assess the Fedwire services on behalf of other Fedwire participants that have designated the service provider to act on their behalf. 18.6. By authorizing a service provider to act on its behalf, a Fedwire participant agrees that A. The reserve banks may establish an electronic connection with the service provider for its use in sending and receiving funds transfers and or securities transfers on the Fedwire participant's behalf, and B. The service provider may use the same electronic connection to send and receive funds transfers and or securities transfers on behalf of other Fedwire participants that have designated the service provider to act on their behalf. 18.7. It is the responsibility of the Fedwire participant and its service provider to establish controls sufficient to ensure that the service provider properly segregates the funds transfers and or securities transfers of the Fedwire participant from the funds transfers and or securities transfers of other Fedwire participants. The reserve banks are not required to take and will not take any measures to ensure that the Fedwire participants' funds transfers and or securities transfers are properly identified or segregated by the service provider. 18.8. By authorizing a service provider to act on its behalf, a Fedwire participant designates the service provider as the proper place for sending funds, transfers, and or securities transfers, acknowledgments, and other advices and notices. Unless the Fedwire participant intends to use the service provider for contingency purposes only, a reserve bank properly executes a payment order as stated in Section 11.2 of this circular if it sends an advice of credit representing the payment order to the service provider. If a Fedwire participant has informed the appropriate reserve bank that it intends to use its service provider for contingency purposes only, the reserve bank may send funds transfers and or securities transfers, acknowledgments, and other advices and notices to the Fedwire participant or the service provider. On 18.9, a funds transfer or securities transfer initiated, transmitted, or received by a service provider or sent over an electronic connection managed by a service provider is subject to the circular or operating circular 7 as appropriate and any other relevant operating circulars of the Reserve Bank, as well as any policy or regulation of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System with respect to the wire transfer of funds, book entry securities, electronic access, and payments system risk. 18.10. A service provider is not a sender or receiving bank as defined in Article 4A with respect to payment orders it sends or receives as service provider for a Fedwire participant. The designation of a service provider by a Fedwire participant shall in no way affect or diminish any obligation or duty of the Fedwire participant. This is 18.11. Under this circular or its appendices, or the terms of any separate circular or agreement governing a particular reserve bank service. It is the responsibility of the Fedwire participant to ensure that its service providers complies with the Fedwire participant's obligations under this circular or its appendices, and the terms of any separate operating, circular, or agreement governing a particular reserve bank service. The Fedwire participant shall retain full responsibility for management of its master account with respect to both its intraday and overnight positions. Any overdraft incurred is a binding obligation of the Fedwire participant to the reserve bank holding its master account. On 18.12, a funds transfer or securities transfer initiated by, transmitted by, or through, or received by, or through a service provider constitutes the initiation or receipt of the transfer by the Fedwire participant for purposes of authorizing the reserve bank to debit or credit the master account or securities account as the case may be. On 18.13, the Fedwire participant and the service provider shall indemnify and hold the reserve banks harmless against any claim, loss, cost, or expense, including but not limited to attorney's fees and expenses of litigation, resulting from the third-party access arrangement or the acts or omissions of either the Fedwire participant or the service provider or their agents except, however, for any claim, loss, cost or expense arising solely out of a reserve bank's failure to exercise ordinary care or to act in good faith. On 18.14, a Fedwire participant or service provider may terminate a third-party access arrangement by providing prior written notice to the appropriate reserve bank. Such notice shall be effective on the date stated in the notice, but no earlier than the close of the fund's transfer business day of the day written notice is received by the appropriate reserve bank. And if you're on your screen, I'm going to try. There's one more section down on the bottom where it shows again the option for third party. Oh, right here, it bounced on me. Pardon me as I find it here again. On the Federal Reserve Financial Services Appendix C, Fedwire funds and Fedwire Security Service third-party service arrangement. Give me a moment. Let me take one more sip here. Don't realize if you're talking straight, it completely dries out your throat. Here, this is the actual form. Required fields, obviously with the asterisk in red there, if you're looking at your screen. Section 1, service description and forms instructions. Then it goes back through everything again with all of the contact information for assistance and the phone number. We'll briefly scroll down through this just so you can see. And again, this will be included in the description. This is the actual true form for them to be able to use a third-party service provider. So my thoughts on this is if the Fedwire is not using on-demand liquidity full-time, okay, pardon me, let me just zoom right if I can get this to go here. Right back to the top. Okay, here we go. I just wanted to close off with this on our top screen. Federal Reserve Financial Services, Federal Reserve Banks operating circular number 6, funds transfers through the Fedwire Fund Service effective December 20th, 2019. Today is December 5th, and this is 15 days away. Just like anything in this is we're pioneers in this whole new world here. There's nothing that, unless you're on the inside of this, that we know as an effective date. All of us are just searching and searching through lots and lots of content to try and figure this out, trying to solve this, if that's probably not the right wording, but it's all about the same in the end result here. I wanted to share this because after reading through the 30 pages of this financial services from the Federal Reserve, we've wondered, were they going to use, when were they going to start? Now we have the start date, December 20th of this year, 15 days from today. Now we wondered, okay, are they going to use XRP because we've had the Federal Reserve, the Faster Payments Task Force, etc., Ripple working with basically everyone. So that had all of us excited last year to see if this comes to fruition. Now it effectively is in 15 days. As I scroll through, we don't physically know at this point if they were using them full time, but we do know at this point there is the option for the third party for them to still choose on-demand liquidity with XRP. I'm going to finish off tonight's news with that. To me, I'm extremely excited. Not sure how much more I could get, because for the last solid year there was pretty much no news, and as of 2019 it slowly started coming out, and then it started pouring, and now it just basically floods out. It's amazing news, and as everyone gets frustrated, the more amazing the news, the more the price drops and lowers and goes down, with articles coming out as of today saying the price could go as low as 11 cents before it begins on its upward climb. I know a lot of people that frustrates them, maybe even angers them, and a lot of people probably have overinvested, so it makes it more strenuous and gives them less time. But my personal thoughts are, if it drops to 11 cents, that is unbelievable. Now we've gone from basically 3 XRP for $1 down to basically 10. I mean, that's a huge investment. Opportunity for someone who was already has their mindset that they're going to continue to buy through all the dips. Again, everything here is not financial advice. We're here for entertainment purposes only. We hope you're having a great night. We hope you're excited. Until the next one.